Santo Padre, carissimo Papa Francesco, grazie prima di tutto di averci
Holy Father,
permesso.
dear Pope Francis,
Posso parlare senza
thank
mascherina?
you first of
Così,
all.
abbastanza distante.
Can I speak without this mask?
Grazie prima
Okay,
di tutto
we
di
are
averci
a little
accolto
far.
e di aver
Thank you
permesso
first of
che
all
dal
for
mondo
welcoming us
intero
and
possano
allowing us
seguire
from
questo
all over
momento
the
di
world
incontro
to follow
così
this
speciale
meeting
per noi.
that is
Quando
so
sono
special
venuta
for us.
alla fine della precedente
When I
assemblea,
came at the
6
end
anni
of the
fa,
previous
ero
assembly 6
stata
years
eletta
ago,
per il secondo mandato
I had
come
just been
presidente
elected
dell'Opera
for
di
a
Maria.
second term as president of the
Conoscendo la mia
work of
età,
Mary.
avevo già 77 anni,
As you knew my
e
age,
6
I
anni
was
a
already
guida del
77
movimento
years
alle
old
spalle,
and had 6
lei mi ha
years at the
detto,
helm of the
"Ce la
movement
farà?"
behind me. You said to me, "Will you make it?"
Ecco,
Well,
come
as you
vede,
can
con la
see,
grazia di Dio e sostenuta
with the grace of
dal
God
suo
and
amore che mi
sustained
ha
by His
accompagnata
love
sempre durante questi
that has
anni,
always
siamo arrivati al
accompanied me
termine. Ce
throughout these
l'abbiamo
years, we have come to the end and we have made it.
Adesso sono felice di poterle presentare la
I am
nuova
very glad
Presidente,
now to be
di cui
able
passi
to
il
introduce to you
testimone,
the new president,
eletta dai
to whom I
partecipanti
hand on the
all'Assemblea
baton,
Generale dell'Opera di
who
Maria.
was elected by the participants at the General Assembly of the Work of Mary.
Cattolica,
She's Margaret Karam,
nata ad Haifa,
a Catholic,
in Israele,
born
da una
in
famiglia
Haifa,
di origine
Israel,
palestinese.
in a family of
In Terra
Palestinian
Santa,
origin.
assieme al movimento
In
lì
the Holy
presente,
Land, together with
ha
the movement
contribuito
there,
sempre a costruire
she
rapporti di
contributed
pace
to
e di
constructive
vera
relationships
fraternità
of peace
fra
and
popoli
true
spesso in
fraternity
conflitto.
between peoples often in
In
conflict.
questi ultimi 6 anni ha fatto parte del centro
For the past
dell'opera
6 years, she has been part of the Central
svolgendo
Council of the
il
movement
compito di consigliera per il dialogo
of the
tra
Work of Mary,
istituzioni ecclesiastiche,
carrying out the task of
associazioni,
counselors for
gruppi
dialogue
e
between
movimenti
ecclesiastical
nati da
institutions,
antichi e nuovi
associations,
carismi nella Chiesa
groups, and
cattolica,
movements born of old and new
collaborando
charisms in the
attivamente per una
Catholic
maggiore
Church,
comunione fra tutti.
actively collaborating for
Inoltre, ha
greater
avuto uno
fellowship
sguardo
among all.
particolare sul movimento
She also
presente
had a
in
particular
Italia
focus
e in
on the
Albania,
Focolare movement in Italy
seguendo
and
le persone
Albania,
con cura,
following
promuovendo
people
la
with
vita del
care
Vangelo e la
and
fedeltà
promoting the
caristica.
life of the gospel and faithfulness
Posso
to the
dire che ha
charism.
svolto con sapienza e in unità
I could
ogni
say
suo
that she
impegno,
carried out all her
affrontando anche
commitments
situazioni
diligently,
delicate
even
con
facing
coraggio e
delicate
equilibrio.
situations in a
Siamo
courageous and
grati
balanced
allo
way.
Spirito Santo di averla scelta.
We are grateful
Siamo
to the
nella
Holy
gioia
Spirit
di
for
poter
having chosen
affidarle
her,
ora la sua
in the joy
preghiera
of being
e al
able to
suo amore, Santo
entrust
Padre,
her now to
che
your
certamente
prayers
sarà
and to your
altrettanto
love, Holy
profondo e
Father,
grande come lo è
which
stato
will
per me
certainly
durante
be as
tutti questi
deep
anni.
and great as it has
Lascio
been
la
for
parola
me
a Marta.
during all these years. I now hand over to Margaret.
Sono un po' emozionata.
I'm feeling quite moved.
Santità, carissimo Papa Francesco.
Your Holiness, dear Pope Francis, we feel immense gratitude at being here with you today in the Paul VI Hall at the conclusion of the General Assembly of the Work of Mary. Today, I repeat before you, Your Holiness, the words, "Here I am," that I pronounced at my election as the new president of the Focolare movement. I say them with emotion and gratitude. Gratitude to God for his love, to the Church, which confirmed my appointment, to the whole Focolare movement in the world, and in particular to Chiara Lubick, who, from when I was very young, opened my heart to the ideal of unity and made me grow in the daily life of the gospel. But, Holy Father, let me say a word. I don't like the word president. I feel in this moment from my heart that I say to you, I'm a daughter of the Church, and I want to be at your service, in the service of all.
Un ringraziamento di cuore grande va a Maria Voce.
My heartfelt thanks go from my heart to Maria Voce, who has guided the movement with so much dedication, love and wisdom over these last 12 years, working for unity within the movement and in constant dialogue with a world that's going through epochal changes.
Ricordo l'8 giugno 2014, non so Santità se lei si ricorda.
I remember the 8th of June 2014, I don't know if you remember, Holy Father, when I had the honour of participating in the historic prayer meeting for peace in the Holy Land, over which you presided together with His Holiness the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew I, in the presence of Presidents Shimon Peres and Mahmoud Abbas, and various representatives of Israel and the Palestinian Authority in the Vatican gardens. I was able to read a prayer in Arabic on behalf of Christians. On that day, I would never have imagined that I would find myself here today to greet you on behalf of the 362 participants in the General Assembly of the Work of Mary, some of whom are here now, with the majority connected online. Holy Father, thank you for welcoming us here in your home. We thank you above all for your shining witness to the gospel, which has accompanied us for almost 8 years now. Your words and actions constantly stimulate us to join the whole people of God in going out to embrace the pain of humanity and to work so that in our common home all may look upon and treat each other as brothers and sisters. We're happy that in these very days, the first International Day of Human Fraternity has been celebrated. This day, established by the United Nations, taking into account the document on human fraternity for world peace and living together, which you signed together with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar in Abu Dhabi on the 4th of February 2019. We thank the Dicastery for the laity, family and life for allowing us to hold the General Assembly electronically. It was an extraordinary, unprecedented experience. There were participants in Asia and Oceania who went to sleep well past midnight, and some in the Americas who got up very early in the morning to participate in the work of the Assembly. Each and every one was connected from their home. But in this way, the Assembly was even more an expression of the multifaceted reality of the peoples and cultures that make up our movement. We're diverse in age and vocation. As you can see here, many young people, Christians of various churches, a Jewish rabbi, 2 Muslims, a Buddhist, and people of non-religious beliefs. All took part in the Assembly. What brings us together and guides us is Chiara Lubic's charism of unity, which for today's world seems more alive and relevant than ever, and nourishes in all of us the same passion for that all may be one, that Jesus left us as a testament. The General Assembly was preceded by a thorough process of consultation within the large family of Focolare members all over the world. 4 key subject areas emerged from this synodal journey in view of guidelines for the Focolare movement for the next 6 years. I'll just share a few. The cry of humanity today, in particular with regard to the excluded, the environment, the family, and the pandemic. the living memory and the actualization of the charism of unity as it was given to us by Chiara. Our commitment in all areas of the Church and society. Our journey together, we looked at this in detail with the new generations. The work was preceded by 3 days of spiritual retreat, which also prepared us for my election as president, the re-election of Jesus Moran as co-president, and the election of 11 women and 11 men, general councillors from 16 countries in 4 continents. We're here, Holy Father, with open hearts, mindful of what you told us in Lopiano on May 2018. You're at the beginning, a small seed cast into the furrows of history that must root itself firmly and bear substantial fruit at the service of the mission of the message and incarnation of the gospel of Jesus. Please accept through us the affection of all the people of the Focolare movement and the promise of the strong promise of our prayers and unity. We're happy to receive your blessing and now welcome your words, Your Holiness, to make them become life in us and in our work. Thank you.
Merci.
Eminenze,
Your Eminence,
cari fratelli e sorelle,
dear brothers and sisters,
sono lieto di accogliervi a
I am
conclusione della
very
vostra
happy to
assemblea
welcome you at the end
generale,
of your General
nella quale vi
Assembly,
siete confrontati su tematiche
in which you have
importanti
talked
e
over
avete
important
scelto
themes
di
and
nuovi
chosen
responsabili.
new people with responsibility.
Ringrazio la Presidente
I am grateful
uscente
to
Maria
the
Voce.
outgoing President,
Grazie,
Maria
Maria,
Voce.
è stata tanto brava,
Thank
tanto
you,
umana,
Maria.
grazie.
She's been very good and very human. Thank you.
La neoeletta Margaret Carram,
And I greet the newly elected
per le
Margaret
loro gentili
Karam
parole e per aver
and thank them for
avuto
their words,
il ricordo di quella serata
for having
di
reminded
preghiera
me of that evening of
per
prayer
l'unità e la pace
for unity and peace
in Terra Santa
in the Holy
col
Land
Presidente
with
di Israele e col
the
Presidente
President
dello
of Israel
Stato di
and the
Palestina.
President of the State of Palestine.
Erano tempi di promessa. Ma la
Those were
promessa
promising
sempre c'è.
times,
Ci vuole
and the
andare
promise is
avanti
always there. We
e
must go
portare nel
ahead
cuore
and bring,
la Terra Santa sempre, sempre.
always have the Holy Land at heart, in our hearts.
Gli auguro a lei,
So I wish for
come
you,
ho detto a Maria con grande grazie,
since I said a big thank you to
auguro di cuore
Maria,
che,
and I wish
ma
from
anche
the depths of my
al
heart
co-presidente e ai consiglieri.
greetings also to the co-president and councillors.
Sono contento che siano qui il Cardinale Kevin Farrell,
I'm delighted that Cardinal
la signora
Kevin
Linda
Farrell is here,
Ghisoni,
and Mrs. Linda
sottosegretaria.
Ghisoni, who is the Undersecretary.
Saluto voi qui presenti,
I greet all of you
quanti sono
here present,
collegati in streaming.
and all those who are
Ed
linked up via
estendo il mio
streaming.
saluto a tutti i
And I
membri
extend
dell'Opera di
my
Maria,
greeting to all the
voi
members of the work
rappresentate.
of Mary, whom you
Incoraggiarvi
represent,
nel vostro cammino,
to encourage you on your
desidero
journey.
offrirvi
I
alcune
wish to offer you a
riflessioni
few
che
reflections,
suddivido in 3 punti.
which I have divided up into 3
Il
points.
dopo fondatrice,
The after the foundress,
l'importanza della crisi,
the importance of crisis,
vivere la spiritualità
living
con
the
coerenza
spirituality
e realismo.
coherently and with realism. That's the 3
Il dopo
points.
fondatrice,
So now, after the
l'importanza
founder,
delle crisi,
the importance of a
delle crisi
crisis,
sono tante,
of
e
many
vivere la
crises,
spiritualità
and
con
to live the
coerenza e realismo.
spirituality in a coherent and realistic way.
Il dopo fondatrice,
After the founder,
12 anni da quando Chiara Lubick
12 years
è
after
partita
Chiara
per il cielo,
Lubick
siete
left
chiamati
for
a
heaven,
superare il
you are
naturale
called to
smarrimento
overcome the
e
natural
anche
sense
il
of
calo
loss
numerico
and
per
also the
continuare
decreasing
ad essere
numbers,
espressione
to
viva
continue to
del
be a
carisma
living
di fondazione.
expression of the charism in its
richiede, lo
foundation.
sappiamo, una
It
fedeltà
calls, as you
dinamica,
know, for a
capace di
dynamic
interpretare i
faithfulness that is
segni e
able to
bisogni
interpret the
del tempo
signs and the
e di
needs of the
rispondere
times
alle nuove
and to respond
istanze
to the
che
new
l'umanità pone.
issues and questions that
Un
humankind
carisma è
poses.
creativo,
A charism is
non è
creative.
una statua di museo, no? È creativo.
It's not a statue in a museum, it's creative.
Si tratta di rimanere fedeli
It's a
alla
question of
fonte
remaining
originaria,
faithful to the
sforzandosi di
original source,
ripensarla,
making the effort to
riesprimerla in
review
dialogo
it,
con le nuove
rethink it, and
situazioni
express it
sociali
in dialogue
e
with the new
culturali.
situations,
Le
new
radici-
social and cultural
le
situations,
radici ben fisse,
with very
ma
firm roots,
l'albero cresce
but the tree grows in dialogue with reality. This work of updating is all the more fruitful the more it is achieved by harmonizing creativity, wisdom, sensitivity towards all, and faithfulness to the Church. Your spirituality, characterized by dialogue and openness to different cultural, social, and religious contexts, can certainly enable and foster this process. Openness to others, whoever they may be, is something that always needs cultivating, working on. The gospel is destined to all, but not as in terms of proselytism. It's destined to everybody. It's a leaven of new humanity in every place and in every time. This attitude of openness and dialogue will help you to avoid every type of self-absorption, which is always a pity and a temptation, that of looking at yourself in the mirror. It's not so nice. Only just to put your hair, to brush your hair in the morning, nothing else. So we need to avoid every type of self-absorption which never comes from the good spirit. This is what we hope for the whole Church, to beware of being looking inwards on oneself, which always leads us to defend the institution at the expense of people, and that can lead us also to justify or cover up forms of abuse. With much pain, we have experienced this, we've discovered this in recent years. Self-absorption stops us seeing mistakes and shortcomings. It slows down the journey. It puts up obstacles to an open verification of institutional procedures and styles of governance. Instead, it's better to be courageous and address with frankness and truth
address problems frankly and in truth, always following the guidance of the Church, which is a true mother, and responding to the needs of the demands of justice and charity. Self-congratulation doesn't give a good service to the charism. Rather, it is a question of welcoming every day, welcoming with wonder every day. And don't forget this wonder, which indicates the presence of God always. To welcome every day with wonder the freely given gift that you have received in meeting your ideal of life and, with God's help, seeking to correspond to it with faith, humility and courage, as did the Virgin Mary after the Annunciation. The second point I would like to put to you is that of the importance of crises. You can't live without crises. Crises are a blessing. Even on a natural, the crisis of a child growing up until they become mature, they're very important, also in the life of institutions. I spoke a lot about this in a recent discourse, recent talk to the Roman Curia. There's always a temptation to transform a crisis into conflict. Conflict isn't good. That can become an ugly thing. But a crisis is an opportunity for growth. Every crisis is a calling to a new maturity. It's a time of the Spirit, which brings with it the need to achieve an updating without feeling discouraged in the face of the complexity of human realities and its contradictions. Today, we emphasize very much the importance of resilience in the face of difficulties, which means the capacity to address them positively, drawing from them, turning them into opportunities. Every crisis is an opportunity to grow. It's the task of those who given governance roles at all levels, especially for you, to work in order to face in the best and most constructive way the communitarian and organizational crises. Instead, spiritual crises of people, which concern the inner depths of the individual and the sphere of their conscience, call for being looked after prudently by those who do not have governance roles at every level within the movement. This is a good rule that's been in the Church forever, which applies not only to times of crisis in what the people might have, but applies in general for their accompaniment on the spiritual journey. It is that wise distinction between the external forum and the internal forum that the experience and tradition of the Church teaches us as being indispensable. In fact, mixing together the sphere of governance and the sphere of conscience leads to abuses of power and other abuses to which we have been witnesses when we took the lid off the pan of all these terrible problems. Lastly, the third point, to live the spirituality in a coherent and realistic way. This is it, coherence and realism. This person is authoritative. Why? Because they're coherent, because they live what they say. We often say this. The final goal of your charism coincides with the intention that Jesus presented to the Father in his last great prayer, that they may all be one, united, knowing very well that this is the work of God's grace, who is one and three, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you. May they be one in us. This purpose, this intention, calls for a commitment and a twofold outlook, outside of the movement and within the movement. Concerning action outside the movement, I encourage you to be, and in this case, the servant of God, Chiara Lubich, gave numerous examples. I encourage you to be witnesses of closeness with brotherly and sisterly love that goes beyond every barrier and reaches every human condition, overcome barriers. Don't be afraid. It's the pathway of fraternal nearness, proximity, which conveys the presence of the risen Lord to the men and women of our time, starting from the poor, from the least, from those who are discarded, working together with people of goodwill in order to promote justice and peace. Don't forget that closeness, proximity, was the most authentic language of God. Think of Deuteronomy, for example, when the Lord says, think what people has had their God so close to them as you have me close to you. That style of God of being close went on and on and on, bringing forth the great essential nearness, which was the Word made flesh, God who becomes one with us. Don't forget this. Closeness is the style, the way of living of God and the most authentic language of God. Concerning the commitment within the movement, I exhort you to promote more and more synodality so that all the members, insofar as they are depositories of the very same charism, can be co-responsible and participate in the life of the work of Mary and its specific aims. Those who have the responsibility of governance are called to foster and act out a transparent consultation, not only within the directive, the bodies at the heart of the movement, but also at all levels, in virtue of that logic of fellowship according to which each person, everybody can put at the service of the others their gifts, their opinions, in truth and freedom. Dear brothers and sisters, imitating Chiara Lubich, remain always listening to the cry of the forsaken Christ on the cross. He who manifested the greatest, the highest measure of love. The grace that comes from this can bring about in us, we who are weak and sinful, generous responses, generous and sometimes heroic responses. It's able to transform sufferings and even tragedies into sources of light and hope for humanity. In this passing from death to life, we find the heart of Christianity and also of your charism. I thank you very much for your joyful witness to the gospel that you continue to offer the church and the world. A joyful witness. People say the Focolarini are always smiling. They're always there with a smile on their faces. I remember once I heard talking about the ignorance of God, and I thought, is God ignorant? But there are 4 things that God cannot know. What are they? What the Jesuits think, how much money the Salesians have, how many congregations of sisters there are, and why the Focolarini smile. I entrust your proposals and projects for good to the motherly intercession of Mary, Mother of the Church, and I bless you with all my heart. Please don't forget to pray for me, because I need it. Thank you.
Domino Vobiscum, sin nomine benedictum,
is the prayer of the Angelus.
Benedicat vos,
The blessing of the Pope. May God bless you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Saluterò tutti.
I greet everybody because it's a pleasure for me to greet you personally.